Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rash's World. Today we have a special guest. We have Carmen Turner Schott. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So, how would you briefly describe yourself to our audience here? What would you say? And you can say anything you like at this point.
Sure. Sure. Well, I guess I call myself a mystical astrologer and counselor. I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker, and I've always used astrology as a tool of self-awareness. I feel that it helps people heal, transform, and become more resilient. So just knowing the basics of your sun sign, moon sign, your birth chart can really help you tap into your strengths. So I consider myself a little different, because I've always done astrology since I was 16.
Oh,
So it's been my passion and I pretty much live it. So it's been my whole
awesome.
life really. So
Awesome. I've been doing a tarot card since I was 16, and
oh
that's also
nice.
something I'm passionate about. And
Yes.
there are correlations there, so we would dive
Oh,
into
we
that.
talk about that. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that. I had a
yeah.
I taught a little class about that. Yeah,
Awesome.
astrology and tarot are connected. Absolutely.
Yeah. But you also have your book, your astrological energy, maximize the power of your birth chart, and that kind of fits in what you're talking about. You're using astrology not on its own, just on its own, which is fine, but also using it as a tool for improvement, for healing, for personal development, and so on. And so, what is your book about then?
Yes. So this book, I really wanted to write a book that would explain to everyone that they can harness all of the 12 energies of astrology. So astrology is energy. And when you understand that, you start understanding why it validates your personality so well because it's kind of interesting because if someone is a sun sign Virgo, sun sign Taurus, most people know their sun sign, but there's so much more to you than just your sun sign. There's your moon sign, which is your emotional nature, your rising sign, which is how people perceive you, how you physically look, how you deal with stress. Then there's also different kinds of charts, like the transit chart, which is put on top of your birth chart. And I can see as an astrologer what areas of your life are being affected by change or loss or good things or challenges. And so in this book, I not only cover each sun sign, I cover the planets in each sign in each chapter, the planets in each house, the planets in transit of each sign and house. So you will use every chapter in this book. Most of my other books, it's a chapter for each sign. So
Mhm.
Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and you look up yourself and you might look up some friends. But in this book, if you have your birth wheel, which you can get for free on astro.com, a free will, you just need your date, month, year of birth, exact time of birth, and place, city, state, country, and you can get the wheel. And it's all symbols. And in this book, I explain all the basics, and then you can look up, oh, I got sun in the 10th house. So you'll go to the 10th house, the 10th chapter, and you'll look up something about yourself. So you'll use the entire book, which is one of my unique things about this book, because you're going to dig into all chapters at some point and learn to harness those energies. So one of the things that happens to me a lot is I've been doing charts and consults for many, many years, and people always ask me two things. They're like, what's my soul mission? Why am I here? That's the one question I get all the time. The second thing I always hear is, well, why is that a bad thing? I don't have planets in this house, or I don't have any Aries energy or any planets in Pisces. Is that bad? And so I want to explain that in this book, it's teaching us how we can harness any of the energies we want. So, like for instance, if you don't have any signs, planets in Pisces, and you're not a Pisces sun, moon, or rising, you can go to the Pisces chapter and read how to harness Pisces energy. You can learn more about it. You can practice being one, if you want to. And same with like if you really want to be a Scorpio, or if you really attract a certain sign and you just don't understand them and you want to know them better, my book is perfect because it's written on a basic level. You don't have to know a thing about astrology to read my book, Your Astrological Energy. You can pick it up and understand it because my goal is to write in a basic, practical way to make everyone be interested in astrology because a lot of people shy away from it. When I get on like podcasts and stuff, I'm different than most astrologers, you know. I don't get into the weeds of the science and math of it and the longitude, latitude, and the you know, that goes into play. You know, there is some you know, degrees and all these things. There is a lot to astrology. It can be very complex. If you really, really want to learn it, you can. You can just learn the basics, and I use astrology as a tool of self-awareness. It's
Mhm.
to understand yourself and others better. And I was just talking to someone the other day, and I said the quickest way to convince a skeptic that astrology is real is to do their birth chart. Because I've
Mhm.
had so many friends, so many family, you know, that are skeptics, and they're like, "Oh, that's just a bunch of hocus pocus." You know, and then when I do their chart, they're like, "Okay, that was deep. How did you know that?" Like, yeah, like this is so accurate. It's because it's energy, and it's your soul. It's your soul's map. It's your personality. You know, you can't change that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know about yourself when I do your chart. I'm just validating you, your essence, your energy, your soul, and you're just going to be shocked of how accurate it is. So I love doing it for people that have never had it done before because they love it. And then they're like, wow, this is so amazing. And then they want to learn more. And you just need to know the basics. You know, you don't have, I've been studying this since I was 16 and my whole life, and I'm still learning. That's what I love about astrology. It's a forever thing. You can spend lifetimes learning it. There's so many different types and kinds and wheels and philosophies, right? And I just use it as as psychological tool. I'm a psychological evolutionary astrologer. So I use it to help people gain strength, learn to heal, transform, build on, you know, manifesting what they want and tapping into their gifts. That's how I use it, you know, as a powerful tool.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love everything you're saying. And just going back to the skeptics, I mean, when I do tarot card readings, there are the people who don't believe in it, and sometimes they don't even tell me what the question is. And then it
Yeah.
becomes so evident that, oh, well, this is what it's about. So, and just with one session, it's like, oh my God, right now. And so the proof is in the birth chart. I mean, once you
Yes.
have that and you can check for yourself. One thing I've also found, I mean, so you're not dealing with the skeptic here. I am a believer more
Yes.
recently because I've been reading horoscopes different horoscopes from different astrologers,
Sure.
and there is quite a bit of overlap. Sometimes like exactly the same thing, and
I know.
sometimes it's so precise that it's canny. Where it's like you're gonna
Oh,
get a
yeah.
phone call from someone who you haven't talked to in years, and then that exactly on that day it happens. So I'm
Yes.
like mesmerized. How
I
how
know.
does that happen?
I know it's pretty neat when the more I learn, the more amazed I am, and especially with transits, you know,
Mhm,
some this year, 2025,
mhm,
has been one of the most crazy astrological years ever. Like to be alive right now is a huge thing because so many of the outer planets have changed signs, which
mhm,
means it's a whole new generational thing. It's going to affect history. It's going to affect everyone in the world, and it's happening. You know, Pluto, the planet of nuclear power, transformation, change, cataclysmic upheaval, also healing, and all those kind of crazy, intense energies, power, control, right? That planet went into Aquarius for the finally for the next 20 years. And it happened like this year, 2025, in January for good. What we're seeing is you see this play out in the real world.
mhm,
Okay. Aquarius is technology, innovation, space
mhm,
travel, aliens, UFOs, robots. You know,
mhm,
here we're still on the news. Elon Musk is going to go to Mars, right? We're going to be living on Mars. We got robots, you know, people, he's putting a neuro link in people's
yes,
head. I mean, we're
yes,
living this in the real news. Like you see astrology play out in the real world.
yes, yes.
And so many astrologers will predict, you know, they'll predict the energies. Like there's these certain things we know could play out when we look at transits, when we see certain things happening in a political figure's chart or in a famous person's chart. And it's so accurate, it's uncanny, but it's
Mhm,
because it's science, it's energy, it's the planets affect life on Earth. That's the one thing that I think people need to understand, you know, is that just like tarot is
mhm,
energy.
yes.
Everything you, all these are tools that help us tap in to our unconscious, tap into other people's energies, tap into a deeper spiritual realm, right? Everyone has a tool they can use. You know, you use tarot, I use astrology. You know, that's just the thing. And the thing is this, astrology does not lie because if you think about this, the moon, the
Yeah.
full moon affects us. It affects
Yeah,
our
I was thinking about
emotions.
that. Absolutely. It
There's
affects the water, ebb and tide. It affects
oceans,
emotions,
tides.
sleep,
How would
hormones.
it not
Yeah.
affect us? Our body's made up of almost
And that's a
80%
small
water.
place. I mean, if you look
Yeah,
at the bigger planets,
I
that's
know,
so much
right?
more.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
How if the moon can do that,
Yeah.
we got to know all the other planets are there for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay, they're out there for a reason. They have some influence on Earth and the sun and everything. So, there's research that more people have conflict, there's more car accidents, domestic disputes, people seeing going to the ER every month during the full moon. And you'll ask police officers and detectives, they have research. Like full moon weekend is their busiest month. I mean, busiest week, 2 to 3 days on the full moon every month. They are,
People go crazy around that
people go
time.
crazy. That's why they say, if people already are unstable, they really get unstable and
Yeah.
they act out because the moon enhances our emotions. Our
Mhm.
feelings start coming up. We start feeling restless. And so, they're like wolves, they howl at the moon, right? It
Right, right.
does something to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So, the moon affects our emotional nature, our feelings, and that's why it's so powerful. And all the planets affect us and they affect the world. So, a lot of things historically are replaying themselves. You know how they always say that history tends to replay itself.
Yeah.
Astrology can show this. And this stuff is not in my book, but I'm just have fun talking about it. But
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
think about Pluto and Aquarius, the last time that Pluto was in Aquarius, we had World War II. We had the Civil War. We had all these inventions and technology was found. And
Mhm.
Uranus, the planet is of revolutionary change,
Mhm.
space travel, computers, robots, anything that is futuristic
Mhm.
is getting ready to move into Gemini. So
Mhm.
Uranus is going to go into Gemini, which is going to be a big deal. And that's going to last many, many years. And in history, all these things that were happening during that time are happening in history now in our world. And what's happening, there's a lot of uprisings, there's a lot of like civil war kind of vibes, like people marching, people, you see on the news. We have all these crazy things happening on the news right now. There's a lot of change and a lot of people are resisting and standing up for their beliefs. That's what happens when you have Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini. So we're all going to be feeling this, guys, for about a long time. It's
Yeah.
going to be a long, long time because we're like in a rebirth of history right now.
Yeah.
Astrologically, it shows it too.
Yeah.
And so people are like, Carmen, what the heck is going on? My friends that don't know astrology. So like, what is going on in the stars? Is this like, I said, it's astrology. It's meant to happen. Like, and it's so weird because there was like an aspect or something that happened a couple weeks ago. And I told my friend, that was a month ago, and I told her, I think that we're going to end up in some kind of a war or something's going to happen that's huge. And then it did. And that
Mhm.
had to do with Mars, I think, was going on at the time. So
Mhm.
Mars is the planet of
Yeah.
war and
Yeah.
violence and conflict and all these things. And so you can see this play out and it's so scary at times. It's so accurate. If
Yeah.
you hear
Yeah.
astrologers talking on YouTube and stuff, they all say, like you said, it's similar because they're analyzing the energies and the energies don't change. They
Yeah.
may interpret it a little bit different or explain it a little bit differently, but they're all using the same sky and tools to analyze what's going on.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
one thing I found fascinating, I'm a Scorpio, and so there was
Oh,
one
nice.
that said like Mercury is like with Neptune and communicating your dreams and so on. And so I found it fascinating, and it reminds me a lot of psychoanalysis, which I'm very passionate about
Oh, yes.
myself, because I think like psychoanalysis is not a science, it's more an art form, but it is correct in so many ways, no more is so
Yes.
than science in many ways. And it's
Yeah.
that kind of interpretation. So like you're saying, of like seeing that and then coming up with, or dreams that we have, and then
Yes.
interpreting them and finding out what is it saying on
Yes.
a much deeper level, on a soul level, as you're saying.
Yes.
And that I
Yes.
find there is that guidance. So for me, it's like therapy when I just read horoscopes. It's like this is you're going through this
It
because
is.
of this and this, and it's explaining that. And
Yes.
then we do have a certain amount of agency there too, like you're
Yes.
saying, because it's a probability, like genetics too, which is a probability in many cases where it can go
Yes.
this way or that way, right? So I like
Yeah.
that. but
Yeah.
partly when things are going on in the world, that it's okay. This is not
Yeah.
something that to worry about. But
It's meant
what
to
do we do
happen.
with it? It's meant to happen. Exactly. It takes away the blame as well from us
Yes,
if something bad happens in our lives. But what are we going to do with that? And I think that's
excellent.
the important part. That's the therapy part and the
Yeah.
growth part that comes in.
Yeah, that's kind of why I loved astrology because I majored in psychology and I
Oh,
love,
cool.
learn about Carl Jung
Yeah.
and I'm very into dream interpretation, dream analysis. I love that and dream work and Carl Jung, with his 12 archetypes,
Hmm.
the archetype personalities are similar to the 12 signs.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we see this in history too, in ancient times, the 12 sons of Jacob all have their own personality. There's always this 12 thing, right? The 12 disciples,
Yeah.
they all have their personalities. So the 12 archetypes are really in play in astrology. And so when I talk about keywords like Aries or independent, resilient,
Hmm.
temperamental, passionate, those are all their archetype energies, right? And we all have all 12 archetypes in our personality. Some of us have like stronger with others, and that plays out in the birth chart.
Hmm.
And that's why I love looking at tarot because the traditional Rider Waite deck I really like because it really
Hmm.
shows the
Yes.
symbols of astrology hidden
Yes.
within. And you can see the Hermit card. That's the card of Virgo.
Oh, okay.
Virgo is shy and they
Yeah.
like their alone time and solitude. So Virgo is the hermit in the tarot deck. So the major arcana are associated with the zodiac archetypes, the 12 and the planets.
Hmm.
So all the major arcana are ruled by astrology, planets and signs. That's their energy. That's how they get the cards get their meaning too. They're all connected,
Hmm.
and that's what I love about it. And even it was kind of creepy. Years ago, I was studying, some metaphysics, some mysticism and things, and I was taking this class, and I was trying to learn Hebrew. I was learning, about the tree of life
Yeah.
the Kabbalah and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And in the tree of life, I was drawing it, the different realms, and you can draw the planet symbols and the sign symbols in the tree of life.
Mm.
Venus, Mercury, Mars. I'm like, oh man, when you see that, it's like
Yeah.
this is deep. And
Yeah.
and so it's all connected. And I just think it's amazing, like because a lot of people are afraid of studying things based, especially if they were raised in a certain religious tradition.
Hmm.
They struggle with that. I read an article that I think it was like 50% of Christians or Catholics believe that astrology is real.
Hmm.
But a lot of them are afraid to learn it because they think, because of, it's just negative things out there about
Yeah,
stuff.
so if you're saying 50% believe in it, then 50% don't, right? So I'm
Yeah.
worried about that second part. Why
Yeah.
don't they? Because there is so, and you can combine them. It's not like it's not going against it.
No.
You can actually, it works for you if you look at it, and that's okay.
Yes.
These are the planets, but then it doesn't exclude theology and so on, right? It can
Yeah.
include it. Yeah.
You gotta open. It's like this is what I tell people because usually I have a lot of Christians that write me and they want to know more. They're
Hmm.
interested in what I do. Um, and they really they struggle with it. And I think it's because of misinformation, that we're taught when we're young. And I remember when I was in a Bible study or whatever, I always questioned because, okay, first of all, the book of Genesis, it talks all about how God created the seasons and the signs in the year. It's in the Bible. Then,
Hmm.
the signs of the zodiac are in the book of Revelation, the four fixed signs
Hmm.
specifically. And then when I started going into different Catholic churches all over the world, when I would travel, astrology symbols are in the Catholic churches. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That's a
Hmm.
symbol of Leo, the lion. That's the water bearer. That's the bull. And so I start seeing it there with Jesus and Mary in the Catholic churches. And so I believe that the Pope has an astrologer. I believe the Catholic Church has the largest library in the world of astrology.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something that I think they didn't want a lot of people to have the knowledge of it because I can see it both ways. It's such a powerful tool.
Mhm.
It needs to be sacred. It is the map of your soul. It's such a deep thing to share with someone, your birth chart.
Yeah.
It's not something to take lightly. So I can see in a way why they wanted to keep it hidden, you
Yeah.
know, and that's why, a cult, it was hidden. It was kept from people. But
Yeah,
now
it's
it's
like sharing
mainstream.
your genetic code, their DNA with
Yes.
everyone, right? So
It's like,
yeah,
here you go. Here, you have your birth chart. You know everything about someone.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so there was a funny meme on Facebook. I remember, and this is totally me. It was like a meme, and he's like, what's your birth date and year? I need your time of birth. And the guy's like, why? And he's
Mm,
like, I'm not going to work with you. Like, you got to understand who you're dealing with in life
mhm.
and how to interact with people and get along. That's why I like astrology because it helped me understand difficult people. It helped me
Mm, mhm.
understand why people hurt me because I got my feelings hurt easily, when I was very
Mm,
sensitive. So it helped me learn boundaries. It helped me understand that, they're just being them. They're
mm.
not, I don't need to take it personal. This is their personality.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're harsh and they're loud and they're going to cut you off and they're going to tell you what they think. That's just because that's them. And I would be able to adapt to people and understand them when I would get a feel for their energy. And you can feel all that anyone can, let me say this, all 12 signs have strengths and abilities.
yeah.
They have, I believe everyone has intuition. It just plays out in different ways,
Mhm. Yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone can open up their and trust their intuition because I believe we all have that.
yeah.
It's just that we shut it off. What did they say? When we're children, we're wide open and we're
Mhm,
very connected to the spiritual world. And
mhm.
then, the real world gets into us. We start being told it's just your imagination. That's what my mom would say. Go back to bed. I'd wake up scared to death, having dreams, and I'd feel like there's someone at the foot of my bed. I'd see someone. I'd go wake them up. Oh, it's just your imagination. Well, then you start thinking that it's not real.
Yeah,
And then you become in the real world and you just work, eat, sleep, make money to pay bills, and you forget why you're here. And
exactly.
we're
Yeah,
here for a purpose. We're not here just to work and make money and die. That's
yeah,
not why we're here, okay?
yeah.
So I'm glad that I found astrology, and I think what got me interested in this was I had so many unexplained experiences
Mhm.
that being raised Christian in the Midwest in America, no one could answer my questions. And I'm a
Yeah.
Virgo. So
Oh,
I
okay.
had a lot of questions, but why?
Yeah,
Why do I dream things? Why did I know this? No one could answer that for me. And I had to go on my own journey.
yeah,
And I would say it was these dreams. I used to dream things so vivid and they would happen. And
yeah,
I would dream about people's lives and then it would happen. And
yeah.
I was scared. I'm like, why am I doing this? And so I almost became a nun, which is a totally funny story. I'm not even Catholic, okay?
Yeah,
And I almost did that because I thought, oh, maybe I'm being called to, but then I realized I had past lives that I was Catholic nun. Okay. It was
yeah.
not this life. I wasn't meant to do it again. But you have these patterns and memories of the past that we bring into this life. And
Mm,
we can see that in the north and south node in the birth chart. Your soul mission this lifetime is your north node, and your south node is your past lives. And I have a book about that too. It's called Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon. But the nodes of the moon are so important too for us
mm,
understanding why we're here, what sign are we meant to harness, and what house are we meant to do it in.
mhm,
So it looks like little headphones, guys, and like
mhm.
a horseshoe. That is an important thing in your wheel, in your birth chart that you want to look at, okay, when you're looking at your chart, along with all the other planets. You want to look at the North Node because that's where your soul is going. And you're meant to learn to balance it with the past lives and the past energy that you've already mastered.
So that's kind of the destiny, the fate part, where you're like being
Yes.
driven in a certain direction. You don't know why, but that's the right path to take,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
you'll
Mhm.
be the way I explain it is everything that happens to us is getting us into our north node. So there's fated, destined karmic events. Everyone has stuff in their life that happens at different times. It's meant to get us into our soul mission. So guess what? If we already know what our north node is and we know what sign it's in, what house it's in, and we start trying to be that, And we start, like for me, I have to let go of the past. I have a Taurus South Node. I have to allow change, take risk. I'm meant to be a Scorpio. I'm a North Node Scorpio, and
Okay,
that's
yeah.
opposite of what
I
I'm
was
used to.
thinking that's exactly me, like fear of
Yeah,
change and but
absolutely.
it's a transformative side. So there you have
Healing.
that
Yeah.
contrast. Right?
A
You need
healer.
to change. You must,
Yes.
even if you don't want to, you will be
You
changed.
must. You're forced to be
Yeah,
reborn like a
yeah,
phoenix bird, right out
yeah,
of the ashes
exactly.
over
That's
and
the whole
over
idea.
again. Like, and it can be painful, but it's
Okay.
also powerful. It makes you very resilient and powerful and strong and spiritual. And so I had to learn that if I stay stagnant and stuck in the past and doing things because it's safe and secure and comfortable, I'm never going to grow and I'm never going to get into what I'm meant to be doing. And so
Mhm,
I'm meant to be a Scorpio and I'm meant to write and teach. I'm a third house North Node. So I know that. So now I'm
mhm.
almost 50. I'm doing everything I can to master this because I don't want to get beat up by the universe anymore and smacked upside the head, right? Because things will happen to wake us up and awaken us if we're not on the right path. And we can make it less painful if we read about the North Node, sign in house, and try to move into it on our own.
Yeah,
And that way it makes it easier. And I wish someone would have told me this when I first started studying astrology. Because in 1990s, when I first picked up my first book, no, there wasn't anything about the nodes out there. You know, that kind of became a thing. I think like 2013 was the first time I saw a node book.
oh, cool.
And now it's a big thing. Everybody knows the nodes. I mean, it's the most important thing in your birth chart is the north and south nodes. And
Yeah,
more than anything.
there are a few things that are coming to my mind I want to share here. The
Sure.
movie Slumdog Millionaire, I don't know if you've seen it, but
Oh
I
yeah.
love the film because what you're saying is exactly that. This guy
Yeah.
has all these experiences, some of them traumatic, some of them don't make sense, but then it all comes together when he's on that show and he
Yeah.
knows the answers to all these difficult questions because of his life experiences. So, and
Yes.
we can say there was a guide there, a spiritual guide, a deity, a universe, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
that he kind of guided him through that and brought him to that point so everything makes sense. So, in that sense,
Absolutely.
all our experiences are meant for a specific reason, and we'll find out at one point. And I think I'm finding out now at this point, at this stage,
Sure.
where it
Sure.
all comes together. So
It
I
is.
found that fascinating. And I also had an expert on Kabbalah, a mystic, on my podcast, and
Nice.
he kind of made me understand what happens with again the tree of knowledge because that
Yeah.
always confused me. But then he said, well, it wasn't about the tree of knowledge because
Yeah.
the knowledge, well, okay, opened their minds, but then next to it was the tree of life. And if they
Yeah.
had eaten from the tree of life, then they would become God. And so, in that sense, that's why they got exposed. So, like, that changes your perspective on things. You go, oh my
Yeah.
God, yeah, it's a
That's
different
so
view.
interesting. I
Yeah.
love that. I love the Slumdog Millionaire reference. That is
Mhm.
very powerful. And what you're saying about the tree of life, like what helped me understand my experiences too, that no one could explain. And I know I'm not the only one because now I've met tons of people through doing astrology that are just like me and they have dreams and they've had the same
Mhm.
things. But what I learned when I learned, that we're on Malkuth, the earth realm, which is the lowest realm on the tree. It's the earth, and
Mhm.
it's so far from, you know, uh, the top realms. And in that realm right above Malkuth is the astral realm. I think it's
Okay.
Yesod. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Yesod. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like a veil between earth and the spiritual realm, like kind of like purgatory. And
Okay.
when I learned about that, I thought, oh my God, that makes sense because that's why I would see, like, wake up in that middle state and see someone standing there, or have a dream about, or wake up and see my grandmother, who had passed away or whatever. Because
Yeah.
it's like real, the closest realm to Earth is that astral, but the higher realms are like way above. Most souls go up. They don't stay around in the astral because it's a lower realm, right? So when I learned that, I'm like, no wonder this makes sense because it's like a veil. And I
Yeah.
remember my grandmother told me a story, and it all made sense too with the Kabbalah. Like when I think it was her grandmother was passing away. She was dying, and they went to visit her, and she kept saying, "Do you see them? It's like a veil. They're here. My mom and dad are here." She could see her deceased loved ones in the room. And my grandmother and her sister were in the room, and of course they didn't see anything, but her grandmother was telling them, "They're here. It's like a veil." So
Mhm.
that also is a cool story. But anyway.
Yeah, and so Rabbi Matthew Ponek, who was on my podcast, he twice actually, he came twice.
Nice. Nice.
He talked also about this tree of life, but kind of upside down, and it's like dripping its fruits into us. So I was like, that's
Oh,
so
cool.
amazing, that image. It's
Nice.
like,
Yeah,
so
I
that's
like
kind of
that.
where we're connected with things,
Nice. I
and
like
that
that.
kind of also like, and again, talking about mysticism, that everything and everyone is connected, and we're all
Yeah.
in this together, and we're all
Yes.
like, we need each other. Even the
Yes.
people that we don't like or who are difficult to deal with, they're there
Yes.
for a reason, and
Ye-
I think that's important
Yeah.
to know.
There are teachers, it's so funny. I have had some people in my life that I felt like just did not like me or made things difficult. And it didn't matter how nice I was or how good I was to them. It was just them. It was something about their personality. But I had to realize, okay, what is this person teaching me? Because everyone is like a mirror and we're learning from people
Mhm.
and it's, the Akashic records, it's past lives, it's all kinds of stuff. And I thought, man, did I hurt them in a past life? Like, what is going on? But I ended up, the one person that was hurting me the most ended up doing something very special for me when I left a job. And
Mhm.
she showed up with all these roses. And I thought, that's the last person I thought would ever get me roses, right? And it was so special. And she cried and she apologized for how she treated me. And I thought
Wonderful.
it's like it came full circle. But it
Mhm.
was like in the it never happened for 8 years. But that my last day in the office, she came and did that. And I said, I will never forget this.
Mhm.
Because she was the one person I wanted to like me, but I
Mhm.
never felt like she did. But it wasn't me. It's
Mhm.
just how she is, okay? And
Right.
she
Right.
apologized. She said, I know I made your life so hard and I'm so sorry. So she knew she was difficult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so and I knew her sign, so I gave her some grace. But knowing astrology and knowing that all the things that happen come full circle.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can feel, I call it patterns, whether it's ancestral patterns. We have healing that some of us have to do that have to do with our parents, our families, our
Mhm.
generation, and those things play out in our lives too. Whether it's
Mhm.
addiction or trauma or abuse, we have to break the cycle of some of these things in our families, and astrology can help show that, where are there patterns or traumas that need to be healed.
Mhm.
And so I worked a lot with trauma survivors most of my life for 25 years. And trauma is a process. Trauma healing doesn't happen overnight. Healing is a process. And you're going to have triggers. You're going to have things come up. That means you're healing. It's not just, oh, I'm over it, It's it's
Yeah.
it's that you don't have that physical and emotional reaction to what happened to you anymore. It's a slow process, but you're healing and it's normal. And so I help people heal. I use astrology to validate certain things that have happened to them, and then I'm also a Reiki a master, and I do
Oh, cool.
Reiki energy healing. So
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
so I kind of bring that into what I do, and the Akashic records. I'm trained in that to connect the images and the past lives and the energies from the records into the chart. And I connect them with the soul mission and how it all is related, and it really matches
Mhm.
what's going on with someone. So, but my goal is I'm trying to do my North Node. That's what I'm
Mhm.
doing here.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
trying to do it in a Scorpio way, which is deep and practical and trying to teach things in a deep way. So a deep subject in a practical, easy to understand way, which is third house.
Yeah.
And so I write these books where anyone can read my books and they won't be confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I love, that's kind of my little niche in astrology is that I'm known to write in an easy understand way.
Mhm. Mhm.
People always say, "Oh, your book made sense to me." I never understood astrology. People always tell me on the podcast. I
Mhm.
go on podcasts, they're like, "You're the first astrologer I had that I understood." I'm like, "Yeah, because I make it very down to earth, very practical." You know.
Mhm. Mhm. And so, what about when it comes to like things, fate, destiny, and things that are seem like not really in our control, and also kind of linked to that, I find the fascinating the idea of soulmates And so
Yeah.
what would be your view on that? Does
Oh
that
my,
do we come together, or some people say there is no soulmate and it's whoever you make it, but I don't actually really trust or believe that. I think there's
yeah.
a deeper
Yeah.
level. As a
Yeah.
Scorpio, I look for the depth,
Oh,
and
absolutely. Me
and
too.
there's people who resonate with you on a very deep level and people who don't. And there are people
Yeah.
who don't understand you. And I just had a horoscope that said, don't worry about them. You
Yeah.
can't convince them to just
Yeah.
just move on. So
Absolutely.
what about that idea of like
Yeah.
people who soulmate or people like kindred spirits that we have in this life?
Yeah. Yeah. So first with the destiny thing, I do believe that people ask me, is astrology, if the chart is the chart, there's nothing I can do. That's not true. I believe it's both, a little bit of both.
Mhm,
Some things in the soul record match the chart, and those things are going to happen no matter what. I believe there's certain events that our soul has came into that time, place, date of birth. We came in at that time because we wanted to experience certain things.
yeah,
Some things are destined. There's
mhm,
nothing that we can do to prevent.
mhm,
And then some things we do have free will and choice. It's both. So I like what Edgar Casey said, the famous psychic. He said, astrology's fact, but there's no greater power over man than his own will. And
mhm,
it is because you know these energies are affecting you. I know when there's a full moon, I'm emotional and I'm a little bit irritable and I need to not
mhm,
take it out on my family, right? So,
right,
we all know.
mhm,
And so you have control of that. And so some things can be seen in the chart. So this is why I say this. I like to get people when they're younger to do their chart before they get married, before they have kids, because there's things that can be prevented. For instance, if someone has Pluto in the seventh house of marriage and partnership, I sometimes they can attract abusive partners or get in a marriage that is not healthy.
mhm,
Okay. And if they're aware of it, it can help possibly prevent it. See what I'm saying? With free
yeah,
will. If they know the
yeah,
potential, I'm not going to tell them it's going to happen. You're screwed. That's not what I do. It's
mhm,
like, but you need to be careful and be aware of it. If you can catch people early enough, usually I catch them after it's already happened. So that
yeah.
means that they were meant to go through it.
Right.
Sometimes I
So there,
catch
there are
them.
certain type of detours, but then you get back to the path. But I don't know
Yeah,
if like time matters, but I'd rather have it sooner than later. And I think like sometimes my detours, it's like I'm
yeah,
avoiding. I'm like the
yeah,
destination is right there, but I keep going in
yes,
circles sometimes.
yes.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you so I do believe we have free will and some of it's fated destiny and it can't change no matter what.
Mhm,
And the only reason that I really believe that is just seeing astrology play out in people's lives that I've helped, but also my own life. Because I'll tell you, there's certain things that I know now, looking back, that I had to go through, or I would never get to where I am today. And I
mhm,
don't regret it. It was hard at the time, but I
mhm.
always tell people it makes you more resilient and
Yes.
stronger to go through hardship. Because if your life was never painful and you always had it easy, you're not going to seek a connection with a higher power or a purpose of why I'm here.
Well,
You're
you
going
would
to,
never leave your comfort zone. You just
no.
stay
Yeah.
there and you're happy with whatever
Yeah.
you got, right? I think those
Yeah.
are good, I mean, they're negative experiences, but they wake you up, they jolt you up. And again,
Yes.
so they're not necessarily bad. They're not necessarily negative if you can, again, draw lessons from it. The worst
Yes.
is when we keep repeating things and the same, like you
Yes.
say, patterns, and we'll make the same mistakes and so on. But
Yes.
until we finally get the
It's
way out,
And
and
it's interesting because, like you said, yeah, because people that keep repeating the same thing, like I
yeah,
had a pattern.
yeah.
What I realized was it's like a domestic violence survivor, someone that's in an unhealthy relationship. I used to
Mhm,
work with domestic violence survivors. It does not matter, and I had to realize this, how many times I would tell them, you don't deserve to be treated this way. It does
mhm,
not matter. They have to be ready to leave.
mhm,
You cannot force them. You can tell them over and over and over again they deserve better. But
mhm.
until they know that they deserve better and to love themselves and that they need to get out, you can't force it. They got to be the one. And
Yeah.
then when they do it, it's so amazing. I've seen
Mhm,
people that have
mhm,
got out of very bad situations and heal and take their kids and everything was okay. But they have to be ready. It's like working with where someone's at. So one of the things that a lot of people ask me about is the soulmate twin flame thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah.
I'm a little bit
Skeptical?
jaded. I'm jaded
Yeah.
on this subject. I'm just gonna admit. So let me tell you. So I have Venus in the 12th house, and that placement is known to be very idealistic in love. So in my younger days, and I always believed that there was a soulmate out there for me. Anytime I would feel a connection, like you said,
Yeah,
Pisces and Scorpio specifically, they want to find a soulmate. They always talk about that. They feel that. They want to connect with someone in a spiritual deep way.
yeah,
Like that's their twin flame, their the other half of their soul. Like they believe in this stuff, right?
yeah.
That was
Okay,
me. Okay.
okay. Yeah,
But I got hurt a lot.
yeah,
And it was that placement I have. Not that everybody else has Venus in the 12th, but Venus in the 12th house people, all I do videos about it and they all come to me for help. Because what we do is we tend to idealize
yeah,
other people and we think they're the soulmate.
yeah.
But what we're meant to learn is that we have to be our own soulmate.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
was the lesson of, but that's because if that's a Venus is in the 12th, that's my research, okay?
So
We
this is my take on it. You need to, I agree with that, but then so you can attract your soulmate.
yeah,
You
yeah.
need to be your own
Once
soulmate so you can attract a soulmate, right?
Yes, if you
Yeah,
once you've done that,
yeah.
you will attract the right person.
There you go. Yeah,
You will. And the thing about Scorpio, eighth house Scorpio is a little different. 12th house Pisces, okay, is Venus. Eighth house Scorpio people, they're very particular. So, like, you're not drawn and attracted to just anyone. It doesn't happen all the time. But
mm,
when it does, it has to be intense and deep. It's like all or nothing.
yeah.
So they tell me they either don't have anyone and don't date because they have a high expectation of loyalty and commitment and chemistry and attraction and like it has to feel spiritual and like connected, destined kind of feel.
Mhm, mhm.
So Scorpios are seeking that.
Yeah,
They're seeking depth. So
yeah,
that's why you need signs that can go deep
yeah,
because most people seem superficial to you and
yeah,
fake. Like you
yeah,
can't handle that. Like you
yeah,
want to talk deep about death and life and and reincarnation, all this stuff. And they're like, you can't have a normal person, that's like,
no,
I'm paying bills and saving money for retirement. No, you need someone that has similar interests.
yeah.
And the thing though with eighth house people and Scorpios, it's all or nothing. They either completely are obsessed and love you fully and like want to possess you, or they're not interested.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
yeah, yeah.
it's like black and white, all or nothing.
Mm,
Pisces are a little different. They're like so idealistic. They think they love everybody when they meet them. Oh, they're my soulmate. And then they'll meet someone. Oh, they're my soulmate. And then they get her. Oh, I guess that wasn't my soulmate. They're seeking that. It's a
yeah.
little different of an energy, if you see. But I
Mhm,
do believe this because I went through a situation with someone that I had a very strong karmic tie to.
yeah.
So when you have that kind of a destined feeling with someone, which I've had, I would dream about them. This is before I ever got married. I would dream about them. It was like they haunted me because I had never felt the way I felt with anyone like I did them.
Mhm,
But they weren't able to commit to me. They didn't want to or whatever. It just never worked out. And so I always wondered, like, did they feel the same way I felt? And so there was like this unfinished business kind of feeling.
mm.
That is when you know you have karma with someone.
Okay,
So when
okay.
you think of karma, it's usually painful. It is
Yeah.
because it's learning and it's uncomfortable. It can hurt because it's teaching us something and that Saturn rules karma. So Saturn's the teacher. And so I had to learn that this was a past life thing that
Mhm,
was playing out again this life with this same soul. They were just in a different body, okay?
mhm,
And I had readings. I knew it wasn't over. I could feel, and then I would run into them somewhere. Like it was like destined. And then I think,
mhm.
oh, we're meant to be, and all this. I got hurt real bad. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got hurt real bad, and it took me getting hurt not once, not twice, three times by this person
Mm,
before I realized they're not for me. I
right.
love them. It was such a powerful attraction and connection,
Mhm,
but it was not meant for me this life. And that plays out. And I had a Vedic astrologer, my friend, had told me, not this life. And I knew he was right. It was from the past life. And this life was not meant for us. And but we were meant to go through these things and you know, and for a reason, for our own journey. So sometimes I feel like we meet our soulmates from past lives. Sometimes we cross paths, sometimes we end up being able to be with them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes our soulmate could be our child or our mom or dad or our sibling, you know, their soul, you know. So it's not always a romantic thing. It's like a feeling of home and like such comfort, like you know each other, like we can read each
Yeah.
other's minds, you know, and all this. So I do believe in that. It
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
And I do believe, and this is just from my learning of the love lessons, is that to be married to someone is not chance. It's very hard, and astrologically, karma wise, if you marry someone, you have a lot of karma with them. And
Okay.
that means there's a lot, it's not going to be easy. That's why
Mhm.
the divorce rate is 80%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And really, and so it's better to stick it out because the things that play out to be married, I mean, because why? Why is certain people get married and other people don't? Or why do you marry the person you marry? Because
Mhm.
it's destined.
Mhm.
You're meant to. So,
Mhm.
like, I married my husband, all right? And you
Mhm.
know, because I've been through some things and I went and got a reading. I'm not kidding you. In 1999, I had a reading about him because it was a blind date. My friend set me up with him. And you know, the only reason I met him is he was born the same day I was.
Oh,
I
wow.
know, right? Cool. August 26th, but he was 5 years older. And I always dated Aries. They're the ones that never worked out. And I thought, as long I got to make sure he's not an Aries. So I said, "What's his birthday?" She said, "He's born the same day as you." I said, "Okay, I'll meet him." So I met him, and he was kind of shy and quiet. I had to do most of the talking, but we had basketball in common, some things. But I didn't know if he liked me or not. You know, I mean, he was okay, but you know. So then I went and had a reading about me and him, and it was so deep what came through from our past lives. I'm like, I'm marrying him. Like, because he had asked me to marry him, and I didn't know if I should or not. I was young. I was only 23 years old.
Yeah.
And and it was so deep. For my teacher did a deep Akashic record cross past life crossing.
Mhm.
And you know what it said in the reading? And I laugh now because 26 years later, I've been married
Yeah.
26 years. It was not easy, okay? But at the time, I'm all like idealistic, you know, and it said that the one of Carmen can find her oneness with God through her
Mhm.
relationship with this guy.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, dang, oh my God, you're right. So I married him,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And it was hard as hell for 15 years, okay?
Oh, wow. Okay. You
I
stuck
mean,
it
it
out.
was
Yeah.
it was not easy
Okay.
because um we're so different.
Mm.
And but now that I'm older and I realized the universe knew exactly what I needed because he lets me do my spiritual work. He lets me do astrology. He has no idea about what astrology is. He thinks
Mm.
he doesn't know, but he accepts me. He doesn't try to I come in here, I do my thing.
Mhm.
He does it, he's not into this spiritual stuff at all. He's Catholic, but that's about it. And so we're completely from different worlds. But that's what God or the universe knew I needed to be able to
Mhm.
pursue my spiritual path. So in a way, guess what? That reading is real.
Yeah.
I've been able to connect and meditate. I come in here, meditate, I do my thing. Then I go out and hang out with him and eat and watch the news, you know. So it's like we're in different worlds and it fits. And that's what the universe knew I needed.
Mhm.
Because let's be honest, if I would have married an Aries, one of them that hurt
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
I was so obsessed with them and like in love and all about them, I would have never done my spiritual work. See what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
I
Okay.
know that now
Yeah.
because of I would have gotten my own way with the emotions and the, you know, I mean, I would have made the relate that person my everything.
Mhm.
And I'm not supposed to do that.
Mhm.
So I think that it's all in our own chart. And I have to see, you know, someone's chart to really know about, you know, who's their best match. But a lot of it is everyone we know in our life now, we've known
Mhm.
before.
Yeah, I do believe that.
I do believe that.
But
And
it's also like with certain like friends, I mean, the people I know for years, and then I meet someone and just talk to them a few minutes, and I feel like I've known like there's this
yeah,
connection
You
which is
have.
stronger than the people I've spent years with.
Absolutely.
And they know me and I know them and we're
Yeah.
perfectly fine. And again, just platonic,
Yeah.
like friendship level. So
Yeah.
there must be some sort of like karmic connections, past lives, and
It
some are
is.
closer than others, I think.
It
That
is.
is
And you
it.
know what they say, 6 degrees of separation,
Right.
it's like it's so crazy. Like the people, I'll meet someone, oh, I know them. Oh, I knew, and you start, oh, that is crazy. Like I just had something really weird happen. Like,
Mm,
um, someone I went to high school with, we used to play basketball together, and they grew up in my neighborhood and everything. I never knew this, but their aunt is a famous astrologer. And I
mm,
never knew that. And their mother ended up telling me, and it's really weird because I was going to take one of their classes and I didn't even know they were related. So, I mean, it's just like, what? Like, and I don't always tell everybody from, on my normal Facebook page, I don't have that I'm an astrologer. If they Google me, they'll see, but I have my business page. But I don't really put a lot about this stuff on there. Sometimes I do, but yeah, I'm getting more comfortable with that as well. But I think that's me being a Scorpio North Node, being more private and behind the scenes now, not
yeah.
so
Yeah.
trusting and open
Yeah.
about things. But no, I believe that, if you get married to someone, there's a lot of karma there that needs to be balanced. And when I say it's difficult, like I had multiple, we always had an issue when we first got married with finances. So if you
Mhm.
think about it, most people divorce. I'm a marriage therapist too. Most people divorce because of two things: lack of communication and money issues.
Mhm.
Differences in how they spend money. It
Mhm.
sounds so trivial, doesn't it?
Mhm.
That's why people divorce. It
Mhm.
typically is those two things.
Mhm.
And and then so what happened was I found out that, it's like he was so on me about spending money, like he didn't trust, like we got to save, like acting like a feeling of lack. And I tell him, you're bursting my bubble, like you're so negative. Like
Mhm.
you're gonna block your good luck and good fortune. Like, I'm totally opposite of him, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I would drive him nuts and he would drive me nuts. And I remember getting a reading, a past life reading, like, what is this issue? Because he kept saying the same thing to me over and over. When people do that, that's a past life pattern playing out.
Mhm.
When someone keeps saying the same thing to you, whether it's a parent or a child or a spouse, that's a past life issue. Okay. It
Mhm.
doesn't, they don't even have it to do with this life. So I had a reading, and what do you know? We were apparently brothers in a past life, and we had a business.
Okay.
And I wanted to expand it, and he didn't. This is what came out of the reading. And I
Mhm.
went behind his back in that life and went and paid money and expanded our business. And he was not wanting to do that. So he never let it go. He
Mhm.
never forgot it. And he kept bringing it up this life, which we weren't in a business this life, we were married.
Mhm.
But it plays out. See what I'm saying? So now that I know the Akashic records and the connection of the South Node in our chart, it helps me help people with understanding these karmic relationships that we can have,
Mhm.
whether it's really powerful and soulmate. And then someone told me, I read something about twin flames, that there's a lot of research on it, but that twin flames, it's very hard for them to ever be together. That's what I
Oh,
read. It's
okay.
actually almost impossible for them to actually marry or be together in the lifetime.
Oh.
And then that resonated with me because I'm like, that makes sense. And it's because it's like they're always, but they always kind of, they come back and then they part. They come back
Mhm.
and part. And what it is that it says that either one isn't ready for the intensity of it, or one is, they're never on the same page at the same time.
Mhm.
They're on this journey, but if it's meant to be, they will eventually be together. I do
Exactly.
believe that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just may not be in this lifetime. It may be in the next lifetime
Yeah.
or the next one.
But again, like Slumdog Millionaire, maybe you have a marriage, but then that leads towards something else where you meet someone else that would be your soulmate. So it's kind of the transition or gateway, and you
Yeah.
need to go through that experience to be able
Yeah.
to connect with that soulmate, for
Yeah.
instance. And you
Yeah.
also have a podcast, Deep Dive. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that because Shariana Boyle is on it, and she was on my podcast
Oh, was
to
she?
talk
Oh,
about her book. Yes, so
oh,
there's another
good.
coincidence there, or not. I
Nice.
don't believe in coincidences, but yeah.
Nice.
So let's talk about that podcast too. Sounds
Yeah.
fascinating.
So I met Sherry Anna about 3 years ago when I was on our podcast. We started working together,
Cool.
and we do new moon manifestation class together. So she does her emotional detox healing, and I do
Mhm.
the new moon. Where's the new moon affected? Then we do manifestation. But no, her and I did. We started deep dive
Mhm.
in March, and it's really to. I talk about the astrological energy of the week
Mhm.
and a topic. And so then she connects it, and we both give tips to the audience about how to handle the astrological energy. She talks about how, to handle the feelings and emotions that come up,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
emotional detox.
Mhm.
So we blend our little styles
Awesome.
together. She's a good friend of mine, and
Yes.
we're always trying to work together and do things and help each other out. So yeah, she's my buddy. And yeah, I love her, and I want to do a lot more together. We've been really busy, but yeah, Deep Dive is our cool show. We air every Sunday on KMET Radio,
Mhm.
and we record every week. And I look at the week ahead, whether there's a new moon, full moon, what's going
Mhm.
on in the sky, give tips, things
Yes.
like that.
No, and I like how connecting stars and spirituality and
Yeah,
psychology and all that. And the 7 days of the week are related to planets. So there you
yeah,
got that already, the seven,
yeah,
and each of them related
yeah,
to different planets and bodies.
yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the
Thank
rack
you.
as well, Carmen Turner Schott. You're an author, speaker, astrologer, and your book again, one of your books, your most recent book, is your astrological energy, maximize the power of your birth chart. And what a fascinating discussion. I so much loved it. Thank you so much for being
Thank
on
you.
Arash's World here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For sure.